Hello, class. Mr. Miles here, back with another set of notes for you. And this time we're talking about lesson 15. And as you all know, as we discussed in class, we were learning about spreadsheets. All right. Now, spreadsheets is one of my most favorite things to teach, and I think you all will enjoy it as well. So here we are. Let's jump into it. So we're first going to start by talking about the components of a spreadsheet. All right. And let me just make it known to you what a workbook is. Now, a workbook is a file that contains multiple spreadsheets. All right. And typically, when you create a spreadsheet, you're going to create a workbook because in that workbook, you're able to create multiple spreadsheets. And let me show you. So if we go over here to our example, what we're looking at now is it's one spreadsheet. Okay. But if we look at the bottom here, if we look at the bottom, see, we've got sheet one, we've got sheet two, we've got sheet three, sheet four, and these are all blank. All right. But sheet one is the only spreadsheet that has some information in it. And because this workbook has multiple spreadsheets, it is a workbook. Okay. Now it is possible to only just create one if you want to do it, but just remember remember that a workbook has multiple spreadsheets. So if you're sending this file, see the file name here is lesson 15 examples. All right, so that's the file name of the workbook. If it was just one spreadsheet here, it would still be the same. The spreadsheet title would be lesson 15 examples. All right, so a workbook has multiple spreadsheets in it. All right, so next, a spreadsheet. A spreadsheet. So it's an arrangement of cells that organizes, analyzes, and calculates information. All right. So maybe you've seen a spreadsheet before, maybe you haven't. Maybe your parents use spreadsheets. Maybe you've used spreadsheets in the past for something you were working on, but it's an arrangement of cells. All right. So if we look here, we'll see that we got like this grid looking thing. All right. And each of these boxes here are a cell. All right. So if we click on this cell here, this is a cell. All right. The box that we have selected here. And each of these cells has a cell address. Okay. Now, a cell address, or just a cell in general, a cell is a specific location on the spreadsheet. All right. And like I said, each cell has a cell address. All right. So if we look at this cell here, we'll see that the it has at the intersection of B3. All right. So that cell intersects at B3. All right. And that's our cell address for that cell, B3. Okay. All right. And let's go back to the notes. Let's see. All right. So just know that a spreadsheet is used to organize, analyze, and calculate information. So for whatever reason you need to organize, analyze, or calculate information, you can definitely use a spreadsheet to do that. I know certain families might use it to keep up with the family budget, expenses, income, and stuff like that. Businesses use it for the same reason, especially if you're working in accounting where you have to keep up with a lot of numbers and do a lot of calculations. Spreadsheets are definitely used in accounting. And yeah, the list goes on. Pretty much any business is able to use a spreadsheet for something. I guarantee it. I guarantee it. All right. So we talked about a cell. So the cell is the individual location on the spreadsheet. All right. That's an example of a cell. And all of these boxes that you see are cells. Okay. Just know that all of those boxes are cells, and all of those boxes also have a cell address. All right. And we said that the cell address is that specific location in the spreadsheet. All right, and this example here, that specific location would be B3. All right, so that's the cell location. All right, and then let's talk about a cell range. So a cell range is basically it's a group of cells together. All right, and just like the cell itself, a cell range has a cell range address. All right, so let's look at our example. What we have selected here, is a cell range. So that box that we have selected now is a cell range. Now it ranges from C6, which is in the top left corner. Let me see, top left corner. Let me see, this side is better. All right, from the top left corner to the bottom right is the cell range address. So it ranges from C6 to F12. All right, so from C6, where was I? From C6 to F12 is the cell range. All right, and that's from the top left corner to the bottom right is the cell range. And a cell range is a group of cells together. Okay. All right, so hopefully this is all making sense. So let me tell you how cells are used. Let's talk about how cells are used. And of course, cells are used to put in information, or we can call it cell data. And there's different types of cell data, stuff that you're already familiar with, I guarantee it. All right, so the first type of cell data is labels and headings. All right, so labels and headings are the same thing that they were when we were using Google Slides, and the same thing that it is when we're using Google Docs. Labels and headings are labels and headings. They're used to describe and to organize your content. They're used to describe and organize your data. That's what labels are and headings are. So, for example, we've got a mini spreadsheet that we created. And so we got this class, number of pets, all of the students. All right. Those are labels. All right. And the labels are used to describe the information. And to take it a little deeper, so the numbers here, all right, you see we got these numbers going all the way down. Number of pets is the label that's describing those numbers. And class one is the label that's describing each of the students. And the students one, two on down is the label for the number of pets that that person has. So you all understand labels and headings. You use them all the time. Okay. And then the other cell data that we will put into cells are going to be values. Okay. And values are just numbers and text. All right. And these numbers and text are used to calculate and analyze data. All right. So those numbers and text are used to calculate and analyze data. So those are our values. So if we go back to our spreadsheet, all of the values here are these numbers. All right, all of the values there are those numbers. And in a way, the students can be values as well, but more specifically, these numbers here are the values. Okay, and notice we can format in here just like we format in Google Docs and Google Slides. So all of the formatting features are here, colors and pictures. You can do all of that stuff in spreadsheets as well. Okay. All right. So moving on, let's talk about the third type of cell data, which is going to be formulas. All right. So in order to calculate, we have to use formulas, and the same rules apply here that apply in math. All right. Because we have to consider the order of operations. And I know you all know what the order of operations is, PEMDAS. So we got parentheses, exponents, multiplication, division, addition, and subtraction. So that's the order of operations. And when we're calculating and inside of our spreadsheets, we have to make sure that when we type our formulas out, that we follow the order of operations so that we can get the correct answers. All right, so let me show you an example of a formula. Let me show you an example of a formula. So say we want to find the total of number of pets for all of these students. Okay, so we will start by typing the equal sign. So we will type equals, and then what we can do is of course we're going to add, and we can click on each of these cells to add. So we're going to add I6 plus I7 plus I8 plus I9 plus I10 plus I11 plus I12. All right, so we can do that all the way down, but that's going to be difficult. All right, that's going to be difficult. It's going to take up too much time if we type out that formula in its entirety. All right, so instead, what we're going to do is we're going to create a function. Instead, we're going to create a function. And let me show you what a function is. So instead of adding all of those individually, we're going to use a sum function. And hopefully you all know what sum means. Sum means to add. It's that simple. Sum means to add. And what are we going to add? We're going to add that entire cell range. All right. And honestly, we can select it. So we can select the entire cell range. So select it, drag it down. We can do it like that. So that's I6 through I20. So you can select it or you can just type it out just like you see it. All right. And what this function is going to do is going to find the sum of all of those numbers. Make sense? All right. We press enter and voila. So creating that function made performing that calculation more simple. All right. So the sum function is a lot more simpler to use than to add up each individual cell or type out each individual cell address. And hopefully that makes sense. All right, so basically functions are used to simplify our calculations. All right, I showed you the sum function, but some other types of functions are average. All right, average is a little more complicated to figure out, especially if you're using individual cells, or even by hand. If you're trying to figure out the average of something, it's kind of complicated. And if you don't know how to figure out the average, what you do is, here, maybe I can demonstrate how to solve average. I'm not a math teacher, but I know how to do math. All right, so we've got a survey size of 5. Boom. All right, so let's figure out the average of these 5 numbers. We would add them all up. So yeah, we would add them all up and then divide. All right, so we'll add them all up. So 2 plus 2 is 4, 8, 11, 13. Uh-oh. All right, so the total number is 13, but we have to divide 13 by 5. So 5 divided by 13, that's definitely going to be a fraction. So 2 point something. 2.3. All right. So 2.3 is the average. All right. That's too complicated of a math for us to figure out in our head, and especially using spreadsheets, it's too complicated. Instead, we'll just use the average function. All right. And the average function is just going to do all of that math for us. We don't have to do it. All right. So it simplifies our calculations. I think that's right. Yeah, that's right. 2.3. All right. All right. So another function that we can, that is common, another function that is common is maximum and minimum. So suppose you have a bunch of data, maybe like hundreds and hundreds of data. Rather than scrolling through yourself and trying to find what's the biggest number or trying to find what's the smallest number, just put in the function. All right. And it's going to find the biggest number out of the selected cells or the cell range that you selected. It's that simple. All right. And that's why we use functions. That's why we use functions. And considering all of this knowledge that we just learned, you all will be able to do many great things. All right. So this is like the basics. Anything